our show On the Bright Side, where we feature amazing influencers who are making such a positive difference in our world today. I'm so excited to have Charlie Peck as my guest today. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great, thanks for having me, Kristin.
Oh, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to have you here. Charlie is the host of Advancing Humanity podcast. She's a Master of Education for K-12 and Family Studies Specialist, professional training in suicide prevention, safe talk for suicide prevention, foundations of trauma and attachment, healing wounds of sexual abuse, healing the helper, simple restorative practices to promote wellness, mental health first aid. Oh, that sounds so good. More people need that. Certified coach practitioner and working on completing your Masters of Social Work. You are so busy. And mother of 3.
Yes, 3 boys. 3.
Oh, thank you for coming. Oh my gosh.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. You have been working on things for a long time. Oh my gosh. And
yes.
And talk to me about, okay, first, before we go into your mental health background, talk to me about your personal background. So you're a mother of 3. You have 3 boys.
3 boys, 7, 9, and 16. Yeah, 3 boys.
Wow, that's a busy household.
It's busy. And then now my 16-year-old, he was supposed to get his license, but because of this pandemic, he was literally supposed to get it the next week and everything closed.
Oh no. Oh my gosh.
What do you do? What do you do?
So did he get another appointment?
He did, but not until July. So it's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Oh my gosh. And then your other 2, let's see, you said 9 and 7. Is that right?
Yes. So a
9.
1st grader and a 4th grader. Yeah.
Oh. And did you guys have social distancing? Oh, tell us, you're not in the United States, you're in Canada.
Right. So I'm an American living in Canada. I live in the Niagara region of Ontario. And so I'm in the education system here. And it's a little different, but there's some similarities. My family's in Kentucky, and so we do talk about the similarities. Yeah, it's pretty similar.
Oh, that's so great. Oh my gosh. I love it there. Oh my gosh. We went there 3 years ago with my kids and family, and it's just beautiful. Oh my gosh.
It really is. It really is. It's on our list to just go and see all the natural parks and things we have. It's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, it really is. You're fortunate. The boys must love it.
They do.
Oh, and then let's see. Oh, an Advancing Humanity podcast. I really, really enjoy your podcast and love your goal of highlighting valuable contributions people are making towards a thriving human experience. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
And it's neat because every single person that comes on the show always relates back to either connection, health, or innovation. And that's why I have those 3 words associated with it. When I was creating the show, I knew that I'd choose people to connect to that, but they always come back to connection, health, or innovation. It's really neat.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And okay, so talk to me about that. You have 36 episodes now? 30? Is that
Actually, as of this morning, 37. And by early next week, mid next week, it'll be 40. I'll reach the 40 mark.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. That's great. And do you have 2 episodes a week or 1 episode? Tell me about your
originally it was going to be 1 episode because I actually released in March. I was planning on releasing way later in the year, but just how things turned out and I got a lot of momentum. I released in early March, and I've been able to just irregularly put my podcast episodes out. I told you before, I don't do a whole lot of editing. I keep it pretty organic, but so that allows me not to have to edit too much. But it's been about 2 per week. 2 per week.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. So you released in March, right before or after? Well, I don't know how the COVID happened in your area, like the COVID closures.
Yeah, it was just a week or 2 before we had all the closings. A week. Actually, it was the week right before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the start of it.
Well, that's good that you got in before, because I know that some people are trying to roll out during that time and they kind of had to pause, and then go, but that's great because people need the, hope right now. So it's really good to break away and find some help and health and connection, like you have. Oh my gosh. And okay, so talk to me about your podcast. Were you always thinking about doing a podcast? Talk to me about your background. I want to hear your story.
Yeah. So the podcast I've been thinking about for a long time, but I didn't really think I was going to do it. I'd always listened to them. I love listening to podcasts.
Oh, I do too.
And yeah. Isn't it great? It just gives you so much freedom when you go and exercise or in the car. I can't sit and read a book. I can't sit and watch TV. So I can just take it with me everywhere.
Yeah.
And I always thought, gosh, these are great conversations. I want to be a part of that conversation. And then when I decided to be more, enhance my clinical skills, that's why I'm doing the mental health. I really thought that, you know what, this is a great way to reach the masses. So I had that vision in mind, and my 16-year-old son actually talked me into doing it. And he said, just do it. You've been talking about it, just get her done. And he motivated me to get it done. So I did.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I really love that. Oh my gosh. And that is just, and it's so great to like reach out to the masses too, you know, because, you know, it's so hard to go. I think it's very effective. And what I heard about podcasting too is that podcasting is the only medium, one of the only mediums where you can multitask. You know, it's hard. You can't multitask too well while you're reading a book.
That's right.
or you can when you're watching TV or listening to the news, but I think it's really like podcasting is, and you can take it anywhere. You know, you could be in the car, you could be, so it's really great. So talk to me about some of your episodes. What kind of, talk to us about your episodes. They're so good.
They're so diverse. You know, my very first one was with someone I know from my childhood. He's actually very good friends with my brother. And he is a leader in advanced cancer treatment for immunotherapy. So he was first on my list. I thought, I can't wait to talk to you. His name is Dr. Jeremy Graff. He's doing amazing work with cancer treatment. And my very good sister friend died from cancer 4.5 years ago. And he was the person I called. So I've always had him on my list, and he started it. And then, so he was fascinating. I was a terrible interviewer at the time. I just, I didn't know I can talk to people, but that was different. But so he was great. But there was Ava Olson was very memorable. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she actually lives 3.5 hours away from me. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when she agreed to do the show, I drove. I brought my 9-year-old with me actually, because I had taken him to Berlin in the past, and we went to a Holocaust museum. He's someone who's just very keen on history and things. So I took him with me, my little traveler. But as I was interviewing her and she was telling me about her mom going into the gas chamber, my little 9-year-old comes up to me and says, "Mom, the internet's not working." And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? No. Eva was fantastic about it, but
my gosh.
I know. But her story is truly amazing. It really moved me, and her messaging is phenomenal. She's 95.
Oh my gosh.
Phenomenal person. Yeah. Tragic story.
Oh my gosh. I know. That is so American. I'm going to have to listen to that one. That's so good. My grandfather was in the Army, and he was in Intel, and he actually studied in Syracuse for a year and learned German traditions, and then he went over and he rescued people from concentration camps.
Oh, wow. What an amazing experience.
I wish he was still alive. They're just amazing. It's such a time in our history that just has such amazing, amazing stories, and it's such it's a horrible time that there's, oh my gosh, there's so many conquerors in that, it's just,
There really are. Well, there's just so many people out there with not only just amazing stories, but with true merit behind the stories. And that's who I look for, is making sure that, because there's a lot of people who can talk about really important information about mental health, but I always make sure that there's something that someone from the audience can walk away with. And so recently I had Crystal Webster on, and she, oh my goodness, I literally had tissues with me when I started the show, and I said, look, go get it. If you're listening, go get your tissues, because she lost her newborn baby. Tragic story, but what she did as a result for others, it's truly amazing, just to how she connects people who are grieving. So people like her, I would have never gotten to talk with had I not done this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. I know there's such great conquering people, people that just have so many interesting stories. And that's kind of where my podcast evolved from. I was in politics, and I met so many people on the campaign trail, and I'm like, there's so much negativity in politics. And I'm like, you know what? You have such a great story. I wish the world could hear your story, and more people. I'm blessed. I met people, I'm like, I'm blessed to hear your story. And that's where I'm like, well, I should have a podcast and have you come on,
Right, because you can. It's so easy.
Exactly. Oh, well, talk to us about your education. Oh my gosh, you have such a diverse and long list of credits and professional background. Tell us about your mental wellness, your education and your professional background.
Yeah. So I've been a high school teacher. I've taught the social sciences for years, and I get to use that curriculum to educate teens. But I've learned quite a bit because I really dive into the research. I love absorbing the new research, especially in the teen brain. And I have a background in child development, so in the family system. And so in education, I am able to teach kids about themselves so that they can be better people themselves, and like how to learn about relationships and how to get better at identifying red flags and healthy versus unhealthy. And then I thought, well, parents need to have this information too. So I started developing workshops for parents. And yeah. So
gosh, do you still have those?
I put it on hold when I had my third child, but I think this will easily go into that stream again. It needs to happen, and that's why I'm doing it.
I need for you that to happen. I will sign up.
Oh, we all do. We all need it.
But I love tools. I love things that, instead of feeling like overwhelmed, you are empowered, by tools. And oh my gosh. So what kind of webinars did you do? Was this a while ago?
It was a while ago. I would have, raising children 0 to 12 or 0 to 6 and then 6 to 12. I did one on the teen brain, just the teen brain. So I could teach teens about it and their parents and educators, because it's a triangulation approach if it's really going to be effective. And that's where I'm going to go with it eventually again, because we've learned so much about the teen brain and how it affects their decision making and what we parents and adults can do to help foster that. It's so important.
Yeah, it is. It's like, it's such, because I have three. My oldest is 20. So he's beyond that, teen brain, but I have 2 teen brains in our house. And it's like, okay, is this the time to talk? Not, you're like sensing,
right.
Timing seems like it's so off all the time, it's like,
oh yes. Just when you think you've got it right, then it's wrong. Then you're wrong. But your 20-year-old is really still in that adolescent developing brain, because it doesn't fully develop until the mid-20s, as most people are aware of these days. Yeah. And it helps us to understand, if you go back to your being 20, I mean, were you ready for the world?
No, I know, it's crazy. And it's so interesting too, because I feel like there's such high expectations of our teenagers now compared to when I graduated. And I just am like, wow, this is a lot, and I'm so happy that like our schools have kind of balanced it out, after problems with, suicide and all these horrible things, because it's just a lot, too much of stress on, and too much expectations, and making like these lifetime choices, like this push to make a lifetime choice by the time you're 18. You better know what your major is. You better know what school you want to go to. It's too hard. It's hard.
Yep. It's so hard. There's so many challenges too. I mean, as everybody knows about the technology and social media, they're the guinea pigs. Our kids are the guinea pigs because they're the first ones who really grew up with it in their face all the time. And we don't have data on that. We don't really understand long term. I mean, 30 years from now we will, 20 years from now.
Right.
But it's just emerging, that data. So we're trying to do the best we can. We really are.
Yeah. Well, put me on the wait list for your webinars. You text me when you know. Send an email. I'll clear my calendar.
Oh my goodness.
It's so needed, and I think that parents are I feel like this time in our lives has allowed us to slow down, kind of, you know, because we're not driving to events like we were before. But I think it actually, like, really, for me, I don't know, what do you think you learned from this time?
Well, what's interesting is I'm finishing up my master's social work now, and I was able to finish up my clinical hours. So I have a couple of courses left, but I was able to really dive into the clinical aspect of mental health and understand people. So I was there when the whole shift kind of was rapidly occurred.
Oh,
And
wow.
so right. So I'm learning that I got to be the teacher. So I'm teaching my students online, and I'm seeing what their needs are. And then I'm seeing what the mental health needs are of adolescents and
Mhm.
adults and their family systems.
Right.
And I'm seeing that we really need to ease into change, and
Mhm.
we need to validate these kids. We need to realize that, you know, we can't let them just escape everything that's difficult. We can't do
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
we've been doing too much of that in
Yeah.
society. So they're not really
Yeah.
building resiliency well.
Right.
And I'm a culprit. I'm a part of that system that did that as far as a parent and educator and all of that.
Me too.
But part of why I went in, well, a major reason why I went into mental health is because I wanted to have that background to where I could help identify their needs. And I'm kind of grateful that I got to be here as a part of that shift, because now I realize they really need us adults to guide them. They want that. They need that comfort, that sincerity. So there's definitely a need. I think they just need to be validated way more than they are.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And you know, it's hard because on one hand, you're like, you have like that culture that says everybody's not a winner. You know, like we went through that whole everybody's a winner regardless of, you know, and then I think the pendulum swung to like you have to be a high achiever, you know, and it just, and now we're, you know, now we're getting back to, okay, we have to look out for mental health, you know, for our kids, because these expectations are too high. It's a whole balancing act, you know, and I think that it's just a lot. It's a lot to like try to just conquer, you know. That's why I can't wait for your webinar to come out. It's just a lot, you know.
It is a lot. It's a lot. And the expectations on parents and families and teachers who are parents. I just did a podcast with John Taylor about this, about homeschooling.
Mm,
And he said, well, how are you doing? I said, well, listen, I'm not a good teacher to my kids. You know, I
right.
have a skill set or whatever, but the relationship's totally different.
Yeah.
And so parents, including me, we're struggling. So that's why I think we needed to ease into it a little bit more than we
Yeah.
did.
Oh,
And then,
you're so right. It is.
well,
Yeah. And
that was my experience. It may
yeah.
be different for others.
And I think, you know, looking back, you're like, how could we have done that better? You know, how could we have eased in? Because we didn't. We were like all at school, and then bang, everybody's home, you know, and it was a lot, you know,
Yeah.
and it's overwhelming. I could see how like mental health, it's like almost too much, you know. That's why you need to like, I don't know, break
Yeah.
it down and just work through and take them step by step. You know, it was hard. March was hard, you know,
March was hard. And I
yeah.
think educators want to have high expectations for our students because we want to see them do the best they can. And
Yeah.
I think every single teacher who put work online
Mm-hmm.
had their heart and soul in it and had the right intention. Everybody.
Yeah.
It's just everybody's adapting and they're adapting. I mean, I know students who are high achievers and
Mm-hmm.
they're really not doing well online, and they are internalizing that, which is
Mm-hmm.
causing them more anxiety, more stress.
Oh,
And we are, I know my school, especially like my school boards, that we are really addressing that well. We're really good to our kids. That's
yeah.
one thing our staff does well. I know. I love being a part of it for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we also need to use this time to look at societal shifts to systems that aren't working well too.
Right. Right. And I think you're right. You know, like we need to offer ourselves grace in this transition period. And I think, you know, I mean, it's hard for teenagers because they don't have the wisdom, you know, to look and say, hey, I need to give myself a break. But they do, because, you know, we're in this whole different situation and different, you know, world, and we can't achieve the type of, type of level that we did, because it's like starting something else, even though it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. My 16-year-old's he's so insightful. You know what? Like, I'd learned so much from this kid. And he talks to me about how, like, motivation. And he said, and he's doing okay. He's doing okay with the online. It took a little while for him to adjust, but he did. And he said, it's the motivation, Mom. It's like, if I go to the gym, I'm going to work out there. If I go to school, there's that social pressure of doing my schoolwork while I'm there. But it's really hard to wake up in a house and then do your work.
Yeah.
So it's just hard. It's an adjustment like anything. It doesn't mean we allow them not to do anything, because that's not adapting. We have to adapt to thrive as humans, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Grace is where it, is the right word.
Yeah, but thank goodness, their school year is almost over, and thank goodness this happened in March versus August, on a given school year, so it's just, it's interesting to see where we're going to go. I think we're living in the land of unknown, and the world's always changing, different states are moving at different speeds, and it's so bizarre, it just really is.
It is. That uncertainty is really difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. But, at least we have scientific facts that help us, I really think, as long as those are correct. But, that's a whole other ballgame. We won't even go into that one.
And we don't have long-term data on this darn virus. So we really keep getting all these snippets of information, and they're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
But gosh, then we have to make a decision to send kids back to school or not.
Right.
It's going to shift everything. It already has. There's so many things we don't even know that are going to show up.
Us. I know. And I'm so in awe though of medical technology, like I was following Abbott Laboratories, on like their initial test. They went from, I believe was a 4 or 5 hour test to 30 minutes in the matter of a month. I mean, it's just, medical science is so amazing, I'm just like, wow, it's just, now this just happened and we're already working on vaccines, and people just need to pause and say, you know what, it might not be here now, but this just started, this just started. But I think medical science is so interesting,
It is. One of my guests was Zaina Kayat, and she is a visionary of the future in healthcare. And she said, we've been trying to do digitized healthcare and virtual healthcare for a very long time, both physical health and mental health. And she said this pandemic has actually made that move forward a lot faster. And she said, all the obstacles that we thought we were going to have, they're not barriers after all. They're really not. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of tragedy around this. And there's also there's a force that's moving us all forward as a society that we didn't expect to do so quickly. Think of the world of work. Think about how many people get to work at home now, and think of what that's doing to our environment, and so many ripple effects to this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
One big social science experiment.
It is. But adaptation, I like that, because it's true. We just have to try to adapt, and to ever changing, because I think that is a link to a lot of things, I mean, physical health is kind of a hard one, but mental health, if we can learn to adapt, I think we'll be more mentally healthy, So what do you think about our mental health in this state now, in this, COVID climate? What are you thinking?
It's so varied for everybody. I mean, I think what we need to do is think about how we can support people and meet them where they are. So I think, for example, employers need to look at their employees and say, what can I do to make your work life better? Mm-hmm. Is it getting you to be at home? Is the 4-day work week? I mean, we need to make these adjustments now, because the work week that we had is so outdated based on the Industrial Revolution. Like, time. It's time to reevaluate. We all know that we can do it. We can adapt, because we had to. We have to right now. So I think meeting people where they are, which is a very clinical term, actually, understanding what their individual needs are. And then again, look at the systems. What can we do better with healthcare? What can we do better with education moving forward? So it's an individualistic, but also that macro scale. We need to just evaluate and make changes for the moving forward to thrive.
Yeah, that's so insightful, and there's so much there, that I could just think about it for a couple hours.
I have. I think about it all the time.
I'm sure you have. Yeah, many hours, not just a couple. Oh, yeah. That's so great. Oh my gosh. So how can our audience follow you? Talk about your podcast. They can find you on Apple iTunes, YouTube.
Yes, we're on anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can find Advancing Humanity. It's this bright green artwork. You can't miss it. It says connection, health, innovation. Again, we're anywhere. We also have a website, advancingHumanityPodcast.com. We're on Twitter. We're very active on Twitter. I love when people contact me through Twitter and Facebook, because then I can interact with the audience and I want to know what they would like to hear about. So then I get feedback from them, and then I can do those topics. Then I reach out to experts in that field. So yes, and Twitter is at Advancing Humans. And then you can follow me personally if you want, at Charlie Peck. I would love to connect with people.
Oh, I know, you're amazing. I'm so excited that our roads merged.
Thank you, Kristin.
I am. I just am in awe, and I love listening to yesterday. I just had some downtime, and I'm like, I'm just gonna lay on the couch, sit on the couch, and just close my eyes and listen to our episode, because it's just so impactful. I just love being able to have tools, for a living. Like, I love to listen to something, listen to a podcast and feel like I have more tools now to help, and I love conversation starters. There's so many conversation starters in your podcast. I love it, and your guests are so interesting, they are. I love your show.
That's what makes the show. Everybody surprises me, and everyone has an awesome message.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Oh, this is so great. Oh my gosh. Do you have any closing comments you want to leave with our audience? It's been so great chatting with you today.
Well, absolutely. You know what? I think that if I'm going to speak to anybody, it's going to be to parents and educators. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because they have an incredible responsibility for shaping future generations. And so learn. If you're going to be a parent, read some books about it, and don't be too hard on yourself, because you're human and you're going to have feelings, and you're going to bring those feelings into the parenting relationship. Same with teaching. But we're shaping the future. So I try to avoid the word balance. And I always try to say, what can you prioritize right now that makes the most sense? Yeah. And I really want to relieve a lot of mom guilt out there, because it hurts. It's powerful. And I think we all need to support each other a little better through that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think mom guilt actually paralyzes a lot of times, rather than giving us the tools to be proactive, because people get stuck there, and I'm
absolutely.
Like, oh gosh, you need to move out of that. It's so hard. I'm getting the chills talking about it, because I feel so bad for moms who are stuck in that situation, because we don't have to be. So tell us some books that you would suggest.
Oh, definitely Dan Siegel, any of his work. I mean, he's done the whole brain child. We haven't talked too much about this, and we don't have to too much, but I do want to mention it's important for parents to understand trauma and the effects of trauma, and educators to understand the behaviors that show up as trauma. And trauma isn't just, it's a word that's thrown around a lot in mental health, but it is affecting our behavior and our state of mind. And so I think we just need to be more aware of what that is and how we can better support kids that we deal with.
And what do you think, define trauma? I mean, there's a large range of definitions to trauma, and there's so much trauma that I think that we don't understand is happening to our children,
Yeah. So there's big T and little T trauma. And I mean, I had someone that I just released this morning, actually, Stefan Grenier, and he said, he was a soldier in Rwanda during the genocide, and he had
Oh, wow.
absolute exposure to all of that. And it's terrible stuff. But he said, I wasn't traumatized. I was nervous and upset, but I wasn't traumatized. And so we have to be cautious. So it's different for everyone. My little 6-year-old, he had a bug on him last year and it scared him. It was the most like blood curling sound I've ever heard. And that stuck with him. And to him, maybe that was traumatic, so just understanding the behaviors and just having more compassion for our kids instead of yelling at them and being so punitive. Sometimes we really just need to understand what's going on and helping them manage that better.
And did you give us a book for that too?
Well, Dan Siegel's work does that. There's a lot of, there's parenting from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Excellent book. Yeah. Any of Brene Brown's work is great for parents, especially women, about vulnerability and shame. Yeah. Lots of resources out there.
Oh, I got chills when you talked about a boy who was raised like a dog. That makes me that makes my heart sad,
It's very clinical based, but it does understand the effects of trauma. So I say that because some people know about the ACEs study, which was actually out of California. And we're just learning so much that kids go through that. Our society has shifted in a way that even though we're not as tough on our kids, I think that will help us thrive because we'll understand them better and support them better through their development.
And I remember reading on your website about trauma and how it affects attachment. I remember, and you did studies on that, right?
Yes. Yeah. You have to attach to another human being in order to be safe and secure in this life and develop well. I mean, that's the basis of being a human being. And when that doesn't happen, that's when trouble occurs later in life. So if we can get in there early and educate new mothers, and even when they're pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, because it starts there, there's evidence to link towards trauma during pregnancy that shows up later in life. It's important. We need educators, parents, society. We all need to know about it. And then when kids are old enough to understand themselves, we need to educate them too.
Oh my gosh. We could do like 5 shows with you. I hope you can come back.
I will.
We need to talk about that and that. Oh my gosh. I really think when I read that about like trauma and attachment, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like, you watch kids who've had like a tough life, and you just go, wow, they're out on their own, and they're kind of like a lone ranger and they feel like they're empowered that way, but that they are sad, and isolated. And you think, oh my gosh, we need to reach out to these kids, because there's going to be so many problems later in life. And they are now because they're not attaching, And that just stuck with me when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, my heart goes out for kids and young adults who don't have an attachment, have attachment issues because of trauma.
Yeah, in my area, and I don't want to take your time up, but I do have to say Lori Gill is such a strong leader in our area and in Canada for this topic. So if anybody is interested in learning more, go to Attach and Lori Gill, search that because she is phenomenal. She educated me. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna pick that up. Yay! I love reading. My dad goes, "You're reading another self-help book?" I'm like, "There's so much to learn, Dad."
Always.
I've done this my entire life, Oh my gosh. I remember being in Barnes and Noble and picking up books for like every level, I felt like I was at Barnes and Noble every other week, about different topics. This is before like I could just look something up in Google, right? And,
right.
And this lady, I was like, I had like 3 under 5, right? So I'm like, and my first one was a reader. So I would get there, give him a book, and then be with the other 2, And I was looking at a parenting section, over in the small age, and this lady looks at me and she sees me with these 3 kids. She goes, "Just wait till they're all teens." You feel like you have a lot to read about now. She goes, "Just you wait." So we're going to have you come on the show and talk about that, because I know we have a lot of moms who follow us on my show. And I would love to get some insight on, like relationships and communication with teens, and talking about, what did you say, the teen brain?
Teen brain. I did a workshop on communicating with your teens better as well. Yeah, because it's all so important. We all need to get better. Give yourself a break, though. Oh my gosh, you're gonna mess up, and it's okay. Oh,
I know, but you mess up and you learn, and hopefully you don't repeat the same. My dad always told me that. He's all, learn from your mistakes, and move forward instead of being paralyzed,
Yes, instead of being stuck, let's move forward. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. It's been such a great conversation. I really want you to come back, because we have so much to talk about.
Thank you. So I really am honored to be here.
Oh, I really, really have enjoyed it. Okay, and then let us know again. What are you working on now? I know you're working on your studies. Tell me what else. And you're a speaker as well, right?
Yeah, I think all of this will lead to the speaking. Right now, I'm teaching. Right now, I'm focused on my students, doing the best I can with my kids, and the podcast runs itself pretty much. It's pretty easy to do. So finishing my work, and we'll see what we bring in the future.
Oh, well, hopefully your future you'll come back here.
I would love that. Well, you and I are totally connected already, so that's going to happen.
Yeah, I really want you to come back next month, and because this is when teenagers are going to be home and need help, because they always need help, but I know my mom friends would love to get some tools from you. I would love to get some tools from you. Yeah. And I can't wait to read. So tell us again, Lori Gill, right?
Lori Gill. Yeah, she's got a website called Attach. And she does a lot of training, and it's just the way she presents her material is so insightful and so important for the world to know. I mean, she educates police officers and educators. We need to get that information out. She taught me, and she's really a powerful force in the field.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in the Niagara region. Yeah. She travels all over North America, probably internationally, or she could. Yeah. But she's in the Niagara region of Ontario. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh my gosh. Then your teenage books again. Dana.
If you look up Dan Siegel, Siegel. Yeah, there's just so many great people who contribute. I look up a lot of academic journal data that's been published. I look at a lot of that.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming. I just really, really appreciate it. It was so fun. And I hope you can come again next month and we can talk about the teenage brain.
Yes. And thank you so much for having me, Kristin.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a joy. And my coworker, Rima, she really enjoyed being on your podcast. And I hope viewers out there, you'll check out Charlie's podcast. It's just amazing. And it's so easy just to, pick up, and they're not too long. They're about 20, what did you say, 25, 30?
I don't put a time limit on it. Yeah, to be honest, I've done any from 30 to an hour and 30 minutes, because if I'm talking to a Holocaust survivor, I'm not cutting that off.
Yeah. Oh no. Unless the internet goes out. No. Yeah. Then you take a pause. Oh my God.
Right.
And then you come back. Oh, that's horrible. I know. My heart dropped when you told me that story, because that would just be something that happened, with my 3 kids, when they were little. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, but it's such a joy. An Advancing Humanity podcast, available on Apple iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, a lot of platforms. So check it out. You will love it. You'll walk away with tools to help you with your day and your life so check it out. I'm going to check it out today. I can't wait. I'm like, when is my work day over so I can listen to more? I love it. And thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you so much.
I was going to say, keep doing what you're doing, Kristin, because it's really important that you're covering really important people on your show too. And the more of us who can get the information out, the better.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And we just need hope during this time, and not even just during this time, but every time in our lives, there's not a time in our lifetime when we don't need hope. You know, it's when the hope is gone that it's the problem, you know. So I just really like the fact that we do have connection and health and hope on your show as well. So I just love it. Can't wait. I'm like, yay, we need more hours in the day or less time to sleep so we can get more things done. No, that's another problem. That was the 80s, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on our show. And we're going to have, at the end of the show, we'll have your website and your podcast and all of your ways to follow you. Follow her on Facebook. Facebook is Advancing Humanity as well, right?
Yes.
And is it a closed group? It's an open group.
I have both.
Okay.
Both. There's a group, there's a page. I think it's called The Page, Advancing Humanity page.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Oh my gosh, I love it. And thank you so much. And I can't wait for you to come again. And good luck with your boys and finishing up. Is the school year over?
The end of June here.
The end of June. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's later for us too. So, oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. I can't wait for you to come back again. Thank you for all of the mental health tools that you've provided in the show. And I just really, I wish you the best and wish you well and stay healthy. And thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you, Kristin.
And thank you all for joining us. We appreciate that you're here, and we hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. And thank you so much. And we're going to have you, I'm hoping that you take today and look at the bright side. That didn't go too well. Stay home, be safe, and hoping you can look at the bright side today and every day. See, we can't all be perfect, but anyway, thank you so much, Charlie, for coming. Thank you.
Problem.
Thank you. And I look forward to having you on the show again. I can't wait.
We'll be in touch for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.